Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to a new episode of Ramadan lecture series organized by the World Muslim Communities Council. It's a great pleasure to introduce Dr. Martin Muhammad Kellner, Professor, Department of Islamic Theology, University of Osnabrück, Germany. Dr. Martin Kellner did his doctoral studies on Islamic legal opinions on medical intervention at the limits of life, a contribution to cross-cultural bioethics from the Institute of Cultural and Social Anthropology at University of Vienna. This was later published as a book format in 2010. His areas of research interest are hermeneutics of Quran and Hadith, medical and bioethics of Islam, Islamic theological basic questions in European context. He is also a member of various working groups like Christian-Islam Dialogue on Social Ethical Issues and University Connection of Islamic Theology, Senate Department of Education, Youth, Science, Berlin. He is a member of research initiative named Culture Conflict in Healthcare. He is a mentor for scholarship program Go Your Way for German Foundation for Integration. He is notably founder, chairman of board, and project leader of educational initiative Madrasa Association for Islamic Education and Intercultural Dialogue. Without further ado, I would like to welcome Dr. Kellner, please.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على سيدنا وحبيبنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Thank you very much, Dr. Abbas, for this kind invitation. And thank you for the audience to listen to this lecture, and we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make benefit from it. And bringing people together in this world is a really important thing. And we are living in a world which in which the people tend to isolate from each other, and a lot of loneliness happens, and gathering people in however ways, in a peaceful way. The idea was, Dr. Abbas, he asked me yesterday to make this lecture, and it's a great honor for me to do this. The idea is to speak about Ramadan. We can speak about Ramadan in many ways. We can speak like in a legal way. We can speak about fiqh. We can speak about tafsir, all of this. Yeah. What I will try is to bring the idea of fasting and the concept of fasting and fasting in Ramadan, which is in Quran, to bring it closer to us, to our understanding, and we hope to benefit from this. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, Ya ayyuhalladhina amanu kutiba alaykumus siyamu kama kutiba ala alladhina min qablikum la'allakum tattaqun. O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for the people before us, so that you might become conscious about God. This is the first command in Quran about fasting. So what I want to do now is to start, what could fasting, the idea of fasting, mean in our world, in our modern world, and what can we learn from it? So I said fasting as a school for modern people. Fasting, a siyam or a sawm in Arabic language, means to abstain from something, to refrain from something, consciously not doing something which you could do. So in this sense, in Quran we have the wonderful and beautiful speech of our mother and of our lady Mary, the mother of Jesus, peace be upon them, and she said, "Inni nadartu lirrahmani sawma." I promised to the Almighty, to God, a fasting. And this fasting was not a fasting from food or something else. It was a fasting from speaking. She was not allowed to speak for certain circumstances. And this is described in the story of Jesus and Mary. But it means that the word sawm or siyam linguistically means to stay away from something, not to do something which you could do. So of course, in Islam, if you say we are fasting in Ramadan, it means a very special, it has a special meaning of abstaining from food and from drinking and sexual relations in the time from morning to evening. We all know this. But I really think that the idea of abstaining is a really very, very deep idea, especially in the modern world we are living in. Why? Because we are living in a very materialistic world, globally. The global world culture is a very, very materialistic culture. What does it mean? It means that there's a kind of promise that owning things, buying things, consuming things will make you happy. So consuming as much as you can is a kind of freedom. The idea is, I want to get everything, and this now. Like some 50 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago, normal people had to save money for getting something. If, for example, you want to get a new car, you had to, to save your money for a long time to get this car, and then you will be happy about this. Now, we know that we live in a global credit system and banking system, which makes it very easy for people. The money is very cheap now, so it's very people to get everything now. And the idea is, and I think it's a global promise that this will make you happy. There's a very interesting figure in the Turkish and also in the Arabic culture. In Turkey, it's called Nasreddin Hoca. In the Arabic world, he's called Juha. He's like an old man, and there's stories about him, like they're jokes, but in these jokes, there's a kind of wisdom. And there's one story about him that he has a donkey. His donkey is his life partner, and he has a donkey, and the donkey, as donkeys are, he doesn't want to move and he doesn't obey him. So he wants him to keep going. So what does he do? He takes a carrot and fixing the carrot in front of the eyes of the donkey. So what does the donkey do? He walks and walks and walks and walks. Why? Because he wants to eat the carrot. So he has the carrot in front of his eyes, and he's moving and moving and moving without understanding that he will not come closer to the carrot. Okay? So I think that the consume culture and the materialistic culture we are living in is somehow similar to this, because we have the idea, okay, if I have this, then I will be happy. If I have a new iPhone, I will be happy. If I have a new car, I will be happy. If I have this, I will be happy. And you go and you go and you go, but you will really never reach this kind of happiness or this kind of freedom you're looking for. So it's a kind of a thirsty person after fasting is drinking salty water. So you drink, but you don't lose you don't get contented about this water. And the materialistic culture we're living in is something like this. So fasting is a kind of reducing your relation to the material world, reducing your needs. And you learn in fasting that you're able to control your most basic needs. You learn and you see that in fasting, you're able to control your need for food, your need for water, and so on, for a certain time. And so you see that if I'm able to abstain from these basic things, then I probably will be able to abstain from other things. For example, I see this iPhone and I have this must-have feeling. Yeah, I have to have this iPhone. Yeah, and you all know this feeling, I think. And to learn, okay, to control this inner desires is a very, very interesting thing and a very important thing. And I think that fasting is really could be important school for all of us to learn this. The Quran describes the human being as a very weak being. Yeah, it doesn't describe the human being as a, you know, this rationalistic, intelligent, very, very smart creature, but it's called the human being is created as weak. And one of our weaknesses is to love money, to love wealth, to love this materialistic world. The prophets, peace be upon him, came to correct the idea or the relation between the human beings and the material world. A very, very strong prophetic message in the history of mankind was the message of Sayyidina Isa, of Jesus, peace be upon him. Jesus, it's called Al-Masih, and Masaha means to swipe or to stroke about something. So Masih is the one who strikes. So to swipe about something. What does he swipe above? There are two explanations for this. One is that he made the blind people seeing by swiping about their eyes. That's one. The other is that he was swiping above the earth, and he didn't even have a house where he lived in. He didn't have a family. He didn't get married. Why? Because what he was teaching was a completely turning away from the material world and a salvation from material desires. So this is the message of Jesus, Al-Masih. There's another Masih in the teachings of Islam, Al-Masih ad-Dajjal, the Antichrist, who is believed to come in the end of the world. And what Antichrist does is he promises the people salvation by material needs, to get a salvation by fulfilling everything they want. And the message of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is in between. It's to get a balance in dealing with the material world, to get a balanced life in dealing with the world, dealing with money, dealing with desires, and so on. So I think that fasting teaches us to get this balance. And in the Quran, it said, as we mentioned, fasting is prescribed to you as it was prescribed to the people before us, so before you. So fasting is something which is present in all religions. All religions do know a certain form of fasting. I think that in Islam, the fasting is very clear. It's very clear what do you have to do and what you can't do. So we are not fasting from chocolate, and we are not fasting from certain food we like, but we are fasting in a very special way, in a very clear, transparent way. But if we go back to the root of fasting, to abstain from something, then we see that this abstaining from something is in the end a base of human culture. Why? Because no culture will ever develop if people are not able to control their emotions, their desires, and so on. And so the great Imam Al-Harith Al-Muhasibi said a very beautiful thing. He said the following sentence. He said, I think in the 2nd century of Islam, you will never reach what you want without abstaining from what you desire. You will never reach, or you will never get what you want without restraining or abstaining from what you desire. So there are two things. There something you want and something you have the desire for. And you have to control your desires in order to be able to reach the thing which you really want. Example, if you want to study something, let's say you want to become a medical doctor. So you have to, for years, you have to abstain from things which you desire: sleeping, having fun with friends, earning money as a young man or a young woman, and so on and so on. But if you don't control these desires, you will not be able to get what you really want, to reach the goal. Another example, if you want to get married, you want to build a family. This is something you want. Yeah? There are some desires which might be against this. For example, if you have a baby child, you will not want to be able to sleep a night through. So you have to keep away from what you desire for something which you want, for a higher goal. And this is a very, very important concept of fasting, to have a goal. And for that, you abstain from things which you desire. So now in the Quran, you have the goal or the aim or the reason why you do this. You don't do it for making a career, you don't do it for earning money, but لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ. Perhaps you will become mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In some translations, we could say perhaps you will, so that you will fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to become mindful towards Allah and so on. There's a lot of translations. But the main thing is that becoming mindful of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, becoming mindful of the reality, to wake up. Why? To wake up, to get awake mindset, an awakening mindset. This is narrated. The Prophet ﷺ said the people are sleeping and they wake up when they die. So this concept of that we're kind of, like in a sleep, in a kind of ghafla of ignorance. We're dream walkers. Yeah. And this is a human problem generally. But now in the time we are living in, I think it's a very, very big problem. Why? Because not only we're living in our own, in our thoughts and what will happen when I make this and what will happen in the future and all these dreams about things, but more than this, most of us have this thing, and we are able to live in a complete parallel universe or universum. In a parallel world beside our reality. And I think the most of us have a problem with this mobiles and with this virtual world. And I think also fasting can be a help to come out of this ignorance, of this ghafla. And I think one aspect which all of us should work on, beside fasting from food and drinking, is fasting from the mobile. The word لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you might be mindful towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, is تَتَّقُونَ, taqwa. Some translators say it's like fearing God, but mainly it comes from the root waqa, and wiqaya is protection. Yeah? To protect yourself. In a religious sense, it means to protect yourself from doing wrong things, protecting from doing things which will Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be angry about. There are many things, there are many transmitted diseases which are also spiritual, intellectual, religious. And I think finding distance is something which is very, very important, you know, to get protected. One protection, for example, is our spiritual mask is not to talk too much. The Prophet said, "Man kana yu'minu billahi wal yawmil akhir falyaqul khayran aw liyasmut." Whoever is believing in the last day, he should talk, he should speak good things or say good things or be silent. So this is kind of protection. It's a kind of taqwa. So fasting is also, there is probably could be this aspect as well. Keeping away from people who are harming us. In the real world, I think we understand it in the real world to keep away from people who are harming us, but also in the intellectual world, in the religious world, in the virtual world, in internet. Not to open every YouTube video which is plopping up on the right side. I think we have really to be very selective in using this media, and also to protect our children from this, because you know there's a new generation now, or there's a generation now which in many parts of the world, in many families, is educated by internet, is educated by television. There are a lot of children now, and I know many children who don't play anymore. They're not able to play with other children, but they play in computer games. And imagine what computer games, what kind of danger computer games could be for children. Imagine that your child is leaving this world in another world, in a virtual world of computer games, where it gets rewards for killing. You get scores, high scores for killing in the virtual world. I mean, this is so dangerous. And I think that many of these dangerous extremistic ideas which we saw in the last years and can also be explained as coming out from this. I mean, imagine that a young a teenager, for example, has been educated by getting high scores for killing. And then someone tells him, okay, now you can get religious high scores as sawab in akhirah for killing. And if these both are connected, it's really getting dangerous. And I think we have really to learn fasting from these things, fasting from these dangerous words, from these dangerous screens, from these dangerous figures which are now influencing our children and influencing ourselves, of course. So some ideas about the basic meaning of fasting, and then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, it was, O you who believe, fasting is prescribed for you as it was prescribed for the people before you, so that you might be conscious about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And then ayyaman ma'dudat. It's translated as a prescribed number of days. A prescribed numbers of days. Ayyaman ma'dudat. And here's a very interesting notion about the Quranic speech, that if it would be just prescribed days, it would be ayyaman ma'dudah, because you know it's a plural which is not for not persons, and it should be a feminine ending of the adjective ayyaman ma'dudah, but it's not a ma'dudah, it's ma'dudat. It's a Jama Mu'annath Salim, and it's called Jama al-Qilla. It's a plural of a small number. So in this ayah, we have a notion, or we get conscious about a very important thing, that the days of Ramadan are not many days. And this is very interesting because, you know, in the beginning of Ramadan, we feel, okay, now the month of Ramadan, Shahr al-Fadil, and so on, is starting, and we are happy about this. So, yeah, in our feelings, yeah. So Ramadan is really going. It's and the most precious things we have in our life is time. Why? Think about money. I think many of us have experienced it. Money comes and goes, or goes and comes. Sometimes you lose, for example, some money, or you spend some money and it's away, and then you feel, subhanAllah, it comes back. It's not really gone, really, all right? But time will never come back. Time will never come back. The day which passed today will not return to you. So being conscious about time is a very, very, very important thing. And I said the most precious thing we have is time. And this is also a very interesting thing, that we have time. Sheikh Hamza Yusuf said this: we have time. Nobody can say, I don't have time. No, we have time. But what we mostly don't have is priorities. What we mostly don't have is to set a list of priorities, what we really want in life, what we really want to achieve. But we have time now, but we don't know how much time is left in our life. Nobody knows it. So, so being conscious about time is very, very important. And if you think about the pillars of Islam, you see that 4 of the 5 pillars are related to time. The first is just the entrance, the Shahada. But then the prayer is the time of the sun. It's connected to the sun. Paying zakat is connected to the moon year. The Hajj is connected to the moon, in the sense that the days of Hajj are connected to the moon, to the time of the year, and the certain actions of worship in Hajj are connected to the sun. Like, for example, after midday you are in Arafah, and so on. And Ramadan as well. Ramadan is 2 cosmic rhythms. One is the sun, the other is the moon. The moon is starting at the month, and the sun in the daytime. So being conscious about this time is very, very important. And losing time is a very, very dangerous thing. And we are all losing time. But I think we are living in a world where we are invited from every side to lose time. When I was young, we had 2 television channels, 2. The first and the second channel of Austria, black and white, starting from 5 o'clock in the afternoon, children program, stopping at midnight. So now I don't have a television, so I don't know, but we have thousands of programs. And this is not enough. We have now internet, and everyone can make his own program. The Prophet ﷺ is reported to have said, "Min husn Islam al-mar'i tarku ma la ya'ni." The part of the perfection of one's Islam is he's leaving that which does not concern him. So leaving what doesn't concern you, what is not your responsibility, is a part of Islam, or the beauty of Islam. So don't get involved with things of other people which you don't have a responsibility for. Yeah? But if this is now, if the Prophet tells us that we should keep away from this, which does not what doesn't concern us, so what's about things which are in there, which have never been real, made up stories? Yeah, think about musalsalat, yeah, TV series, films, all this made up stories, lies, yeah, things which never happen, which will never happen, and to watch them and to lose your time, and this is really a dangerous thing, and especially in Ramadan, it is a very strange thing in the Islamic world that the film industry in the Islamic world is working all the year for Ramadan, for the Ramadan series, for the musalsalat Ramadaniya, yeah, and the people don't read Quran and they don't go to Taraweeh and so on because they have to watch the TV series, and this is a very important thing that we are really should think about how to use our time, and that losing time is dangerous. And if I would tell someone, or if we would have been told that someone is in our house stealing money, we would be like very angry and would try to catch him and call the police. But we don't care about all the things which are stealing our time. But time is more important than money. So then the next part of the Quranic speech about Ramadan is whoever is ill or on a journey and things like this, and all these exceptions of fasting for people who are in a special situation. It shows that there's no hardship from one side. There's no hardship in religion, but it shows also another thing, that the basic is fasting in Ramadan, and not fasting has to be a certain reason which is a part of the religion, and not our own will. We don't put our own will and our own ideas above the religion. This is one thing. Then you have the notion in Quran about feeding a needy person, about giving food to people in Ramadan when you have some excuse not to fast. And this really reminds us about the importance of welfaring, of being generous. It's reported that the Prophet ﷺ he was the most generous of people, the Prophet ﷺ. He was the most generous of people, and especially in Ramadan. He was like a wind in his generosity. Yeah? And so giving charity and helping people is a very, very important thing. But we all know that some parts of the world, or many people in this world now in these days, probably don't need material help. Many need, but many don't need. But many people need spiritual help. Many people need emotional help. And we should really care about the people. We should really, this is one thing in Ramadan which is very important, to be merciful with people. It's reported the Prophet ﷺ said, لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب لنفسه. Nobody is really believing until he loves for his brothers and sisters what he loves for himself. Nobody is really believing until he loves for, or he wishes for his brothers and sisters what he wishes for himself. Imam al-Nawawi, 700 years ago, explained this hadith and said, the ukhuwa, the brotherhood in this hadith is not the brotherhood of religion, but it's the brotherhood of mankind. ليس أخوة الدين بل أخوة الإنسانية والبشرية. So we have to care about people and care about our brothers and sisters in this mankind which are suffering, and some of them are suffering material, some of them suffering spiritual, some of them suffering emotional, some of them suffering intellectual, and so on. And being generous to people is something which is very important. Then the next notion in the Quranic speech about Ramadan is the month in which the Quran was revealed. It's speaking about the revelation of Quran in Ramadan, and we know that Ramadan is the shahr, is the month of Quran. So here I want just to stress one point about the revelation of Quran, because I think it's really important. We're living in a world which is very materialistic and which doesn't really believe in metaphysical realities, in religious realities. We have a very small understanding of, wrong understanding of rationality. And many people said, okay, is it really a rational thing? Is it really rational to think that, God, the Quran was revealed from God, from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to Lawh al-Mahfuz, then to Bayt al-Izzah, then to the Prophet. How should this be from one heaven to another heaven? And it sounds, for many people in this world, it sounds like being irrational. Yeah, and many people started to doubt in Islam because they think it's irrational. What can we say about this? One point is that, of course, rationality is something which you have to learn, which has to be studied, and I don't think that we really learn rational thinking in schools now. I really advise everyone to read, for example, the beginning of Al-Aqidah Nasafiyya and the epistemology of Islam. It's really interesting and really important. But to bring it closer, because most people don't read, and ummatu ikra la taqra, the ummah of ikra, of read, doesn't read anymore. So to bring it closer to our minds, we say, okay, it's irrational. How could Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala send a book from this heaven to another heaven, to this and the Jibreel and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam and so on? Okay, I say the following. We are now sitting in a Zoom conference. I'm sitting now in, Alhamdulillah, in Medina Munawwara. Dr. Abbas, I think, is in Abu Dhabi, I'm not sure. And I think that many people who are watching now are sitting somewhere in the world, wherever. So, let's go 50 years back, only 50 years. It's not a lot of time. I'm 50 years old now. Go 50 years back. We find a very smart, intelligent man or woman, and now we want to explain them how this Zoom conference takes place. Okay? So I make it very rational. What I describe now is really the thing, what is happening now. I'm sitting here in Medina. So there's a machine in front of me. Okay, this machine catches the optical waves and the how to call it, the acoustical waves of me speaking, catching it, transforming it in the machine to electromagnetic waves. Okay, so this is, I'm sitting in, you don't know it, I'm sitting in front of a laptop. Okay, so now this machine is sending these things, these electromagnetic waves, in the room through the air to a Wi-Fi transponder. I cannot explain it, but it's flying in the air in this room, okay, to a small machine which is catching them. So now this machine is catching it, the Wi-Fi transponder is catching it and transforming it to new waves which are going down the earth to a server, and from the server to a big disk. And this disk is standing directed to the heaven and sending these waves in the heaven. So in the heaven now, we have some things flying around there. This is called satellites. Yeah? and they are catching these waves from this conference, and sending in from one of the satellite in the heaven to another to another heaven to another of this, until and in a certain point they will send it to the earth. In the earth, there's again a disk which is catching these waves up, transforming it into waves, and so on and so on and so on, and now coming to your machine, flying in your room if you have Wi-Fi, and then transforming it again to a picture and to my voice. And you now see me as I'm looking, you hear my voice as it is. All of this takes about 1 second or 2 seconds, and it doesn't cost anything. So 50 years ago, what would people tell you if tell me the story? They would say, you're crazy. This is irrational. This is impossible. Mustahil, right? And it happens. So if this happens, why should Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala not be able to make another thing happen, like revelation? So I see I'm at the end of my time, and probably, do you have 5 minutes left, or?
Please continue.
Okay. Okay, I will make 2 points only. The next point, the next notion in the Quranic speech is وَإِذَا سَأَلَكَ عِبَادِي عَنِّي فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. When my servants ask you about me, as Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says to the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, when my servants, yani the people, human beings, ask you, O Prophet, about me. So now the answer which we would expect is, if they ask about me, so tell them that I am like this and that. But it's not like this. When my servant asks you about me, I'm truly near. I'm truly near. فَإِنِّي قَرِيبٌ. Inni qarib, I am near. And this is a very interesting thing, yeah? If you ask, Allah is near. If you ask the Prophet, Allah is near. So Ramadan is a very, very important time for us to ask about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to think about Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to remember Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, to wake up from all this ghafla, this sleeping and so on, and really to think about Allah. The last thing is in the last notion in Quran, the last part, the last ayah in this verses of Ramadan, there is speaking about marital relations in Ramadan and fasting. And I just want to mention 2 things here. One thing is, Hunna libasul lakum wa antum libasul lahun. They are garments, speaking about your spouses, they are garments for you as you are garments for them. Look at this kind of speaking about marriage, about, protecting each other, giving warmth to each other, giving love to each other, giving care about each other. And this is also a thing which we have to learn again. In some parts of the Islamic world, we have now divorce rates of 60%. This is a disaster. This is really a disaster. And in Europe, it's not better. It's even worse than this. So really, Ramadan is also a time of refreshing our relations in our families, with our neighbors, and so on and so on. And really to be garments for each other. And the last thing, and then I will stop, is the notion of i'tikaf, of retraction in the mosque. Yeah, and this is a sunnah, and it's something which we are wise to do in Ramadan. But the idea of i'tikaf, I think it shows us 2 important things. One thing is that we really have to be alone for a certain time, that we have to go back. And being alone is something which is very important. To be alone for a certain time, to choose a time to be alone. The Prophet ﷺ, he was in the beginning of the revelation, before he got the revelation, he was in Ghar Hira, in the mountain of Hira, meditating there alone. And Ibn Abi Jamrah said that this is a notion, or it shows us that the beginning of the religious way, and the beginning of a spiritual way, is to be alone. And for us, being alone for 10 minutes, just put your mobile on offline, 10 minutes. Just keep away from your mobile for 10 minutes. Sit on a sajada after prayer and just give 10 minutes, give half an hour, give 1 hour, but be offline. We have to learn to be offline, learn to be alone. One thing, and the second thing, the last thing is that it shows us the importance of mosque. And if you want to know how important the mosque is, then imagine your country without the mosque. Imagine how your country would be if there's no mosque anymore. We can criticize some things in mosques, but still, the mosque is like the area of breathing. It's a very, very important place for us, and a place of worship and a place of blessings and barakah and khair. So thank you very much for listening, and thank you very much, Dr. Abbas. And I'm sorry for having talked too much. And
thank you so much. It's remarkable, especially for taking all viewers to the Isles of New School. It's a new school of thoughts, or you are giving new ideas. And we have a few questions, and I will share with you. I'll read it. As you described, fasting is a self-restraint training for Muslims. How to ingrain this meaning in the hearts and minds of young Muslims in order to fulfill higher goals of fasting when they grew up?
A very good question. How to teach this younger Muslims? I mean, I think being young in this time is really, it's really a difficult thing. Yeah, it's not an easy time. Sometimes I'm happy to have this white hairs. Being young is very difficult, and teaching the things to young people is very, very, very difficult. But you know, human beings are osmotic in their nature. Human beings are like, they are able to learn very much from other human beings, and they're able to learn good things and bad things. And if the parents really have this practice and love Ramadan and do this, it doesn't mean that their children will, grow up and don't make any mistakes and, live as their parents live. No, because they have too many other influences now. But the example of the parents will influence them. And if you see the presence of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, how much it changed in the reality of the Sahaba, and the world of the beginning of Islam was much more difficult probably than our world now, and how much he changed by his presence, by his example. So we should be optimistic, and we should never lose the hope. I mean, if your children like 13 or 14 years old and they're like getting crazy in some things, hope that it's like one of our shuyukh said, "Tir wal habl fil eid." I don't know how to say it in English. Fly, and the how do you call it in English? You're still fixed in my hand. So sometimes children fly a little bit away, but they come back. And this is the hope we have, yeah. But we have to be good examples. We have to give them good examples, to good education. We have to explain them a world. It's not enough that they have their schools, and it's not enough that they have their nurses at home. Probably, they really have to understand the world. And I think they have also need an intellectual understanding of the world and of the things which are happening in this world. And you have to make a lot of dua for them.
Thank you so much. There is another question, that fasting is about giving, not taking. How can Muslims create trustful institutions that encourage Muslims to give for needy and poor, not for politicized organizations?
Yes. Islam has a very, very sophisticated system of giving, very sophisticated and very interesting system. We have zakat. The interesting thing is that zakat, the most Muslims which I know, which are well educated and studied and have their academic degrees and so on, if you ask them, okay, tell me how I can calculate my zakat, they don't know. So zakat is really, it's a very big danger now that the zakat is like a forgotten pillar of Islam. And the people have ideas about it, I have to give a little bit, but they don't know it. Zakat is a very beautiful thing. Anyway, it takes much time to. Then you have sadaqah, you have the charity. Sadaqah comes from sadaqah, to be honest. You show your honesty in religion. It's easy to say, okay, I'm religious. It's very easy. But to show it and to show your honesty it's very difficult. And sadaqah is a kind of showing that you are able to give the most precious things which are to the human soul. It's jah and mal, and it's wealth, money, and being famous, being respected by people. These are two things which are most beloved to human beings. And if you're really able to give this, it's a very beautiful thing. And Sayyidah Khadija radiallahu anha, she was the woman who gave these two things. She was an aristocratic woman, rich woman. What she did is, mashallah, she gave money and she gave her social prestige for this deen. Anyhow, and the third thing which you really have to care about is waqf. I mean, if you read statistics about the history of awqaf, of endowments in Islam, it's so amazing. Yeah? At the end of the Ottoman Empire, about 60% of all houses, buildings, and cultivated lands were awqaf. So a waqf is like a kind of, it's like an island. It's like a kind of it's something which is given to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and nobody has the right to take it. So this is a kind of non-politicized charity. Yeah. And so in the colonial time, one of the first things which they did is they centralized the awqaf. They made Wisarat al-Awqaf. Yeah. So it's this centralization of things is a very important thing in the modern time. But however, what we really have